Along the quiet shores of Pensacola, Florida, where the Gulf wind blows through the sea oats and broken brick, stands a fortress that has watched nearly 2 centuries of war, imprisonment, and death. This is Fort Pickens, and some say the soldiers and prisoners never left. Construction of Fort Pickens began in 1829, part of a massive coastal defense system designed to protect a very young United States. Built with millions of bricks and overlooking the entrance to Pensacola Bay, the fort became one of the most strategically important military strongholds on the Gulf Coast. When the American Civil War erupted, Fort Pickens remained in Union control even while Confederate forces surrounded the region. Cannon fire echoed across the water. Soldiers lived in cramped stone chambers and many never made it home. But the war wasn't the only darkness tied to the fort. In 1885, the U.S. Army imprisoned one of the most famous Native American leaders in history inside these walls, Geronimo. After years of resistance against American expansion, he and other Apache warriors were transported thousands of miles away and confined at Fort Pickens as prisoners of war. Just imagine that. A warrior who had remained and roamed in the deserts of the Southwest suddenly trapped behind damp, brick, cold walls overlooking the ocean. Some visitors claim that long after Geronimo left the fort, unexplained footsteps and voices began to echo throughout the empty corridors. Park rangers and overnight campers have reported hearing boots pacing across the old parade grounds long after closing time. Others claim shadowy figures moved throughout the old artillery rooms, only to vanish when approached. And if you look back at an earlier post of mine just a couple of years ago, I believe I captured one of those shadows on video the last time I was here. One of the most chilling reports comes from the underground chambers where soldiers once slept. Visitors describe hearing whispers in empty rooms and metallic sounds of chains dragging across the floor. And then there are the sightings. Witnesses have reported seeing the apparition of a soldier standing along the ramparts, staring silently toward the water at night, as if waiting for an enemy fleet that never came. Paranormal investigators believe the energy of the fort may come from decades of tension, imprisonment, isolation, and war. War leaves scars, and sometimes those scars stay behind. Park rangers working for the National Park Service have quietly shared accounts over the years of strange activity inside the old structure. One ranger reported locking up the fort near dusk when he heard the distinct sound of heavy boots walking across the parade grounds. At first, he assumed another ranger had returned to check the grounds, but when he stepped outside, the courtyard was completely empty, and no one could be found. The footsteps continued for several seconds, then it suddenly stopped. Another commonly reported encounter happens in the fort's dark interior hallways. Visitors walking through the old military rooms have described hearing whispers echoing from empty chambers, sometimes sounding like two people speaking just out of earshot. A group of campers staying nearby once told park staff that they saw a figure standing along the top of the ramparts late at night. They believed it was a ranger until the silhouette slowly faded into the darkness. Perhaps the most unsettling account comes from a local paranormal investigator who visited the ground barracks. He claimed that while standing alone in one of the stone rooms, he heard what sounded like metal dragging across the floor, followed by a sudden cold rush of air that moved past him in the corridor. Moments later, he heard 3 slow footsteps behind him. When he turned around, the hallway was completely empty. Today, National Park Service maintains the site as part of the Gulf Islands National Seashore. By day, tourists explore the tunnels and cannon batteries. Children run through the halls where soldiers once braced for battle. But when night falls and the sea breeze moves in through the empty archways, the fort begins to sound alive again. Because at Fort Pickens, history doesn't just sit quietly in the books. It echoes, and sometimes the soldiers are still standing watch. So on today's little adventure, I was just down here taking a vacation, but I thought I'd stop by again. And of course, the place was littered with tourists, but I still walked through in hopes to gain at least an image of something. But the true test would probably have to come at night, under an actual nighttime investigation. So maybe one day I can come back and gain permission to be in here alone at night. All right, that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk soon. And always hunt the truth.